Hallo miteinander, I'm Gesh86 and this is Udongein Cross. Yes, that is how you're properly meant to say this game's title. You don't learn of this until you beat the game and see the credits. However, the common misconception still tells you something, that it's a Touhou spoof on MegaMari X, starring Reisen Udongein Inaba. While she hasn't been the protagonist of such a game to my knowledge, we still have the issue that there's way too many Touhou games trying to be MegaMari already. Since this is a game much younger than, for example, Rock Maiden, let alone MegaMari, we have every right to be judging this critically. The level select screen is at least making a good first impression. We'll be quite bold and start with the mighty ogress Yugi Hoshiguma. She resides in the former Hell, which I don't think Reisen has ever canonically been to. We can quickly shoot regular bullets and charge them for either full power or just halfway. We can also dash and dash jump, for which Reisen doesn't even need special boots. They wouldn't go well with the knee socks and the skirt anyway. Overall, our moveset and how the controls feel is very authentically like X. We are well equipped to be dealing with rampaging fairies, huge pillars of fire, and demonic burning skulls. But what's our reason to be venturing to such a savage place? The premise of Udongein Cross is that a group of Moon Rabbit soldiers has attacked Gensokyo. The Rabbit Girls were swiftly beaten and captured by one Gensokian each, because they're total chumps that can barely hold a rifle. Just absolute trash. On Seiran's behalf, Reisen sets out to rescue these soldiers from the Gensokians. They are the 8 Mavericks. Our protagonist also seems to have her own hidden agenda for taking Seiran's mission, but that is a mystery that won't unfold within this video. This whole premise is introduced during the intro stage, which we skipped for brevity and to get to the real action quicker. Destroying this blue skull dropped a B icon. It raised our bomb counter in the top left to 1. Already we shall use this bomb to release a fully charged shot without the need to charge. That is one of the ways to use bombs in this game, but honestly, it's one that I'm not too fond of. I'll show you a better alternative in due time. There are other pickups. The first aid kit we just grabbed allows Field Medic Reisen to patch herself up for a large amount of health. About 2/3 of the bar. We've also seen medicine bottles, which heal for less, only about 1/3. As we are used to from MegaMari, enemies drop items by random chance and they are farmable, but there's one object they'll never grant you, this P icon. 8 of them exist, and you'll find one in the most secluded or dangerous spot of each stage. They are your currency for purchasing permanent upgrades from the shop between levels. At the beginning of the stage, we had to avoid flame pillars from below. Now they are back with a vengeance. The idea is to wait for them to vanish, then dart across the rooftops for the next cover. I haven't tested how much the blasts hurt, but they do look scary enough to instantly kill. I doubt it, but what does for sure are pitfalls and spikes. The latter only if you're playing on at least normal difficulty, which we are. Reisen could make fun of me firsthand if I recorded Ijimodo. We've arrived at a bar that leads straight into a hot spring spa. Action platformers needn't add much flavor to their levels so long as they deliver on design, but I always appreciate when they do. It is an appropriate location for battling a belligerent Yugi. She's full of energy, Enough that she can stomp the floor so hard it makes the whole onsen in the background splash. Bosses here will always have long invincibility frames after taking damage. That is a Mega Man X thing too, but I can tell it was understood why this is done. To make charge shots more effective compared to uncommitting rapid fire. Wall climbing and wall jumping helps for evading most of Yugi's attacks. For the laser satellites though, positioning is key. One more thing to watch out for is that whenever Yugi stretches out her arm or drinks from her sake dish, all your shots will be blocked. It's another reason why wildly shooting isn't too clever against her. We have won. It may be unexpected, but both Yugi's stage and her boss fight are among the easiest. Probably because she just can't ever be serious. The former hell is therefore a good early choice for when you have few upgrades and no weapons from other Gensokian Mavericks. The game did not tell us what weapon we got. How peculiar. Anyway, the shop has various bonuses for various prices. Beating a boss grants a fixed P icon for a total of 17 overall, which is exactly enough to buy out the store. Still, since there are no refunds, getting upgrades in a sensible order matters. Doremi is next, and despite the name, she won't be nearly as sweet now as she was in Kubinashi Recollection. It would have been a sin to not show you this stage, as it's an auto-scrolling shooter. In a Touhou fan game, the audience is guaranteed to be delighted by one of those. So why don't we use the weapon we got from Yugi? We can't. There is no weapon. Udongein Cross gives you the standard gun and nothing else, and that's perfectly okay. The similarities to Mega Man X have been striking so far, but here we see that not everything is copied for the sake of copying. The developer, Holographic Otaku, wants you to buster duel everything. No skipping of bosses through overpowered weaknesses. Besides, confidently not featuring extra weapons is arguably better than having an uninspired arsenal. Now back to the stage at hand, it is among my top favorites in this game. Although it definitely only earns a draw against another. The second scrolling shooter level, encountered within the Sigma stages. Or at least whoever takes the role of Sigma here. A hint. She's prettier than him. Coming up is this stage's P icon. It's obviously not hidden, but still takes some skill to collect without taking damage. Failing to grab it would be quite jarring, as this level has no checkpoint. Sounds daunting, but I'd still say it's very reasonable. What's less reasonable is a special achievement, in-game and on Steam, to make it to the boss without taking any damage. And no, healing back up as we did does not count. We are long disqualified. I've already gotten the achievement on my own time, but I did not want to make it a condition for our video. The finale of the stage is here, and it's a memorable part. Dodging these bullet pillars reminds me of Volkmeyer's Inferno. That's a level from Battletoads. It's past the turbo tunnel, so no human being has ever seen it. There's only legends. We've made it through and arrived at the boss's lair with full health and 3 bombs in stock. Holding down the bomb button when you have 3 will do something extraordinary. It's the ace up our sleeve we'll need for someone as formidable as Doremi. I've claimed she wouldn't be playing nice, but looking at her and Reisen's conversation now, our protagonist is absolutely the meaner of the two. They've had contact in 2 official games so far, so any bad blood between them is not too far-fetched. While I've said that charge shots are the most useful against bosses, Doremi's encounter might be an exception. But before we get deeper into that, let's use our triple bomb. It's a protective barrier, and in my opinion, the far superior alternative to the instantly charged shots. It will negate up to 4 hits or last about 20 seconds, whichever comes first. Doremi's main gimmick is that she constantly spawns nightmare bubbles. They will block our shots even if they're fully charged. That's why rapid firing is probably the better idea, as that way your shots will at least make it through sometimes. The nightmare bubbles aren't just for protection. The Baku will often place them around the arena, and if there are too many, she may instantly recall them all. That move is especially sneaky and tricky to dodge. At the end of the day, Doremi is much harder to handle than Yugi, so much that we have our first death. That was an attempt that started out real strong, but once I lost my cool, everything fell apart. Future tries will start with 0 bombs, so we're even at a disadvantage now. There is an upgrade to buy in the shop that remedies that. Lives will then always start with a maximum of 3 bombs. It's really deceptive that in this fight, Doremi doesn't usually move too fast or is too aggressive, yet it's a genuinely difficult one due to its nuances. What steals the show is the attack where the screen briefly turns white before a ring of lasers gets summoned. At first, it will look like there's a safe spot in the center, but it's unfortunately not that simple. You have to wait a bit first, then dash out before you're trapped. The time frame to get through is very small. It's a good thing the attack itself happens very rarely. It's looking a lot better for us now. And done. I always find it funny when there's gratuitous explosions, yet the opponent doesn't die. Doremi's sprite makes her look even more relaxed now than before the match. She'll say goodbye with a few more ominous words, and then hands over the captured Lunar Rabbit. We're just supposed to imagine that she's somewhere within sight. With that, we've got our second stage in the bag. I wanted to show you one more, but not until we've purchased the item I briefly alluded to, starting bombs. It's a really good one to pick up early. There's another feature we should look at before we proceed. Costumes. Reisen undoubtedly looks fashionable in her Legacy of Lunatic Kingdom outfit, but each in-game achievement unlocks a new palette. For the rest of the video, we will adopt Erin's colors, as if the pupil had become the master. Of the initial 8, one stage is easily the most creative. It's Seija's hideout in the Shining Needle Castle. This naughty little troll has a special gimmick waiting for us. What's this yin-yang orb? Flip? The spikes were below, now they're on the ceiling. Even the Kedama have been turned upside down. So yeah, this stage may not be hard in a traditional sense, but it is the most puzzling one you'll find in this game. Supposedly, you can reach the goal with only 4 flips. So claims an achievement that I do not own. I can only imagine what wacky maneuvers one must perform within those constraints. The flipping mechanic is fun, but can be a double-edged sword. A hasty, unwise press of a switch could be your doom, and that's especially true on the outside of the feudal castle. While for us death will always be at the bottom of the screen, there's technically pitfalls at the top and bottom. Often the switch puzzles won't be too complicated. If you go the wrong direction, spike walls will soon turn you around. However, there's one time where a yin-yang orb, a mandatory one too, is set up like a hidden secret. Then there's also a notorious one, where hitting it immediately is a matter of life and death. On that note, we've only lost one life so far. You might be wondering where they are displayed. We also haven't seen any severed heads of bunny girls on ledges or plundered them from the remains of our foes. Well, that's another aspect where Udongein Cross does its own thing. You have infinite lives. And no, that's not the casual mode setting. Bar Holographic Otaku just wants the challenge to lie within getting from one checkpoint to the next. No arbitrary ejection from a stage. Even under these gentle rules, this is no easy game. We've had this subject a while ago, I think with the Amapani Urapani video. Finite lives stem from the era of arcade machines. You can achieve non-artificial difficulty through modern design, like making that yin-yang orb really hard to hit. That's the notorious one I mentioned, and it's tied to the P icon of the Shining Needle Castle, the in my opinion most devious one in the game. We've got quite a way ahead of us to get back to where we were. That does give me an opportunity to talk about something I've been hoping for a while. My very weird experience with Mega Man X1, the original. I didn't know anyone who had it, and it always seemed to be taken at my local rental shop. I was so young that I could only afford to buy very few games, and when the N64 era came close, Mega Man X lost to Super Metroid. Looks like we can stay on this tangent a while longer. No offense, but Super Metroid was the right call. That game is very significant to me. I only got around to trying Mega Man X when the first emulators and ROMs circulated. Now this early Mega Man X ROM was hilariously cursed. It had the craziest bugs in it you wouldn't find on a Super Nintendo, but still not something so blatant that you'd catch on if you had no prior experience. Back here again. Third time's the charm? Yes! Examples for these bugs were that the game didn't know about certain checkpoints or respawned you at the wrong ones. You should be back at the boss corridor after being mauled by Spark Mandrill, right? Nope, beginning of the stage. Even worse was that water in Launch Octopus's stage wasn't transparent, though fiddling in the emulation options might have solved that. Taking the cake was that the dash boots could not be retained after beating Storm Eagle. I'm pretty sure that made the ROM legitimately unbeatable, but I gave up long before that when I finally saw through that the files were a dumpster fire. So that was my very bizarre and unpleasant first encounter with Mega Man X. Of course, I know nowadays that it's a deserved cult classic. Meanwhile, we've successfully grabbed the P icon. That yin-yang orb there was stealthy. You wouldn't expect it down what could be a death pit. Without it, this spike wall right here would be impassable. We're practically at the end now. There's the airlock to the boss. It's made out of bamboo. How fitting. It's hard to tell if we're right side up at the moment. Not that it matters. Seija has the power to flip the room at will. The conversation with her is short, chaotic, and not even remotely fruitful. The Amanojaku has many of her cheat items with her that you may know from Impossible Spell Card, my favorite photo game by Zun. Despite fighting so dirty, I wouldn't say Seija is too tough. She's a fairly safe early choice, one you should be able to handle with a small life bar and few other upgrades. Whenever red bullets spawn from the top and bottom, you can expect a flip to happen shortly. It won't always though. Like the bosses we've seen before, Seija has a way to block attacks. It's the slash she occasionally does, which also immediately counters with a bullet of her own. I shouldn't have opened my big mouth. The oh-so-easy Seija has taken the first round. Let's not underestimate her for the next one. The cartoon bomb will either force us to back off or switch sides. The Tanuki Jizo statue absorbs a shot, retaliates, and teleports our foe to it. The cursed doll will suck our shots to it until it's destroyed. Our protective shield gave us a much better start on this attempt. Hopefully the good streak will continue. This boss fight, and really all of Udongein Cross, is so well crafted. The funny thing is, if someone told me they wanted to make a Touhou Mega Man, I'd probably try to dissuade them at first. But when the result is something like this game, maybe I'm being too pedantic. Too much Mega Man isn't really a good argument when you have a quality action platformer ready to be played. This title had a heck yeah reaction in the Steam Community Hub when its port was announced. Luckily, that made me give it a chance. With that, I'm Geshi86, this was Udongein Cross. It's rock solid. Rockman solid, you could even say. Bis bald.